Hello and welcome back to my kitchen. Today we're going to do a couple of very simple Indian dishes. I became a vegetarian way back when dinosaurs roamed the earth, and I tried a lot of different vegetarian cuisines, and until I finally came to India in the 70s. I traveled overland from London and came to India, and it was like walking into a culinary sweet shop. And it's a very broad cuisine. There are lots of different dishes depending on which part of the country you are in at the time. So I'm going to show a couple of very simple recipes. And important for cooking Indian food, or I think it's important, is to cook with ghee, which is clarified butter. So I'm going to show you how to make clarified butter today. I'm going to make, it's 1 pound, and it's sour cream, organic sour cream butter. Now I don't know if you can get sour cream butter in the US or in England, and if you can't, then just use good organic non-salted sweet cream butter. It's not exactly the same, but it will do. And for cooking Indian food, especially for making the sweets, it's very important to use ghee. It's also a very healthy alternative because all of the butter solids have been cooked out. And so we just start boiling it. And then it needs to cook quite slowly for about a half an hour, I would say, but we'll time it, how long it takes today. It's very important to watch and to stay with it. Or if you're going to go somewhere, you can't sort of go off and go for a walk or go shopping. You need to keep an eye on it, because if it burns, it's gone. It just burns. So what I do if I'm not going to be in the kitchen for a long time, then I just set my little clock to remind me. I take it with me to remind me in 20 minutes to check the ghee. And so that's. But we're going to keep it here today, so we'll keep an eye on it, and you'll see the different stages of what it looks like. We're also going to make Mung Dal soup. Mung Dal is it's split mung beans, and it looks like this. This is what they look like, the beans, and it's a very, very healthy soup. It's good for vegetarians because of the protein, and it cooks very quickly. And you can cook it with vegetables or without vegetables. Today we're just going to cook it with different spices, which I'll show you. And this is my little spice box. This I have in the kitchen because you don't have to open packets and glass and every time you want to cook Indian food. And I'm sure you'll recognize a lot of the things. This is cumin. This is, what is it called in English? I've forgotten. Gelbwurz. I'll comment. This is chili powder. This is black mustard seeds. This is Asafetida, which is a resin. And it smells a little bit like garlic. And it's very, very good if you're cooking beans, because it helps it helps to reduce any kind of gases that you might get. These are two different kinds of masalas. Now, we don't really use, if you use curry powder when you're cooking Indian food, everything tastes the same. So it's nice if you have sort of different spice mixtures. And these are two different kinds of spice mixtures. In India, there are thousands. And this one's a garam masala, which means hot masala, and you can put it in vegetables or you can put it in dal. And this is a sambar masala, which is basically for dal, if you're going to cook dal with vegetables. And and so we're going to use, for the soup, we're going to use ghee, cumin, asafetida, and I can't remember the name in English. I'll have to think about this. It's a problem when you're speaking two languages all the time, but I will remember. And I'm sure you're all going, that's the name, that's the name. Everybody will remember except me. So, and our ghee is boiling, so I'm just going to put it onto the oven over here and put it on a lower heat, like 2. You'll see it starts to boil. But we don't need it to boil the whole time, so we're just going to put it over here for now. And we'll just keep an eye on that. So now this is the dal. I cooked it this morning. I cooked 150 grams of dal, and it's kind of turned into this nice soup. Smells lovely. So what we're going to do is we're going to put in this is about a teaspoon and a half of ginger, grated ginger. And it's about a half a tomato, and I've peeled it and chopped it. You can put in more or less as you like. And it's quite thick, so I'm just going to put a little bit of hot water in. And salt. I'll put in about a teaspoon of salt. Now you can put more or less salt as you like. My mother used to say you can always put salt in afterwards, but you can never take it out again. So now we're going to make what is called, in India, I learned to cook in Maharashtra, which is the western part of India, and they have a word for the spice mix. You take oil or ghee and you fry the spices before you put them into a dish. And in Maharashtra, this is called Fodni. It saves you saying the whole time you take the ghee and the oil and you fry the spices. You just say, today we're going to make a ghee Fodni. And so I have this lovely little pan that I got. And this is ghee that I made last week. It just gives everything, it makes it very easy to digest. It develops the taste of the spices, and it's actually very healthy. In Ayurveda, ghee is the number one sort of healing cooking fat that they use. So I'm going to put in, I've taken a chili. Now these are quite hot. Yesterday I made a lovely, wonderful potato curry, and I was really happy. And I put one chili in and about two potatoes, and it was so hot that I had to eat a lot of yogurt with it. So I'm being very careful, and I always cut the chilies in big pieces so you can see them in the dish, so that nobody's going to bite on a tiny little piece of chili. You check your soup and you find your chili, and you can take it out before you bite on it. So that ghee is heating up. Kurkuma. Thank you. I don't know. It just ain't easy living in two languages sometimes. So I'm going to put just a little over a teaspoon, and they'll start to fry a little, and they start to release their aroma. It's very important that you fry. If you just put them into the soup without frying them, they don't sort of get a chance to open and release their flavour. So that's a very important step. You can put ground cumin in, but it's not the same. It just doesn't have the same taste. So we'll just let those sizzle for a couple of seconds. And then I'll put in, I think I'll just put in 2 pieces of, just to be on the safe side. I mean, you're going to make it as hot, spicy, or non-spicy. If you don't want to put chili in, you don't have to put chili in. You can use chili powder if you like. I just happen to have some nice fresh chilies. So now that's nice and sizzled for a while, so you just put in about this much Asafetida. If you put in more, it has a lovely effect if you just put it in the right amount. But if you put in too much, that's all you'll taste, and it'll taste like garlic. And put in about this much turmeric. And just let that fry just for a couple of seconds more. Now turmeric, you need to be a bit careful, because just because it's yellow doesn't mean it's Indian. And this soup is boiling now nicely, you can see. Then the spices just smell beautiful. So I'm just going to pour that in and use a little trick I learned in India. And just let that come to the boil once, and your soup is finished. So it's very quick. And just to finish it off, I put in a little chopped coriander. It's not so fine. It doesn't have to be so fine. You don't have to make it like a paste. Just let it boil, and then and then the soup is done. And that's it. That's Mung Dal soup. Just keep checking the ghee to see how it does. And the next dish we're going to make is like a savoury pancake. It's called Dhirdi. And it's gluten-free. It's a gluten-free day today. With no gluten in the soup, and we're going to make a gluten-free pancake, and it's made with chickpea flour and rice flour and different spices, and it's very variable. I mean, you can make you can put vegetables in it if you like, and it's one of those dishes, if I come home in the evening and I just don't really feel like doing big cook, I just make a sort of dhirdis. You can whip it together in about 10 minutes. So we're going to show you how to do that. So now we'll just put a little coriander in the soup. And Bob's your uncle, as we say. When I went overland to India in the 70s, I travelled from Ladakh right down to Sri Lanka and was lucky enough to get onto a yacht and work my passage back to Europe. And the second time I went, I was very fortunate to end up in Atmasantulana village, which is an Ayurvedic healing centre in Maharashtra, and that's where I really started to learn how to cook. They cook the most wonderful Ayurvedic food there, and I had a fantastic teacher, Vinaji, who taught me everything I know. These soups and the dhirdi and everything that I know comes from there, basically. So that was a very fortunate occurrence. And this soup is finished now, so we're just going to put it off to the side and get on with everything else. And our ghee, it starts to separate. Like the milk solids start to come to the top, and that will be that. A lot of people then what they do is they start to skim the foam off, but I don't do that because you don't really need to, and a lot of the butter gets lost in that. So you just let it gently cook, and eventually the solids will separate out, and some of them will fall to the bottom of the pot and get kind of like light, sort of golden in color. And then you test the ghee, which I'll show you to see if it's finished, and then you pour it through, you strain it. And I use these lovely little things. They're actually for tea, and I have a stainless steel pot, and it's wonderful for straining the ghee through because you don't lose anything. So we'll show you that later. Now it's bubbling nicely. So now I'm going to show you how to make the dhirdis type. So now we're going to make dhirdi. I have 100 grams of chickpea flour, and I have 50 grams of rice flour. Now I like rice flour because it makes it a little lighter and a little crispier. And then we put about a teaspoon of salt. This is a very small teaspoon. And I put some cumin seeds. Now I'm just going to break them up a little bit in my hands so that they release their flavour a little bit. They'll be fried when I cook them. And a little bit of Asafetida and turmeric. And a little chili. If you don't want to use chili, you can use pepper. You can use a little pepper for good measure. And now this is about 500 milliliters, which you pour in, and just you have to whisk it through to make sure no lumps stay. And what you can also put in, these are carom seeds. They're called in India, they're called ova, and they're from the seeds what we would call summer savoury, and they give it a nice another nice little spicy flavour. Just a few pinches. Actually, you can I'm putting tomato, onion, and ginger into this dough, but you can grate carrot into it. You can grate zucchini, as you like. You know, it's really up to you. It's a very flexible dough, as you say. A friend of mine just told me that she recently made it without all of the spices and made a sweet one for her kids, and they liked it. So go for it, I would say. So that's a nice dough. I've used about 300 milliliters of water, and it usually starts to thicken up a bit. And now I'll put in, this is a half a tomato in small pieces. You have to cut them pretty small because otherwise they don't cook through. And this is a very small onion. I'll use about half. Also very, you see the dough it starts to thicken up a little bit after a couple of minutes. And this is a teaspoon of grated ginger. Our ghee's been cooking for about a quarter of an hour now, and you see how it starts to develop. Like the milk solid starts to come to the top, and this will go on for a while. I've got it on 2 now, and we'll just let it continue to cook, and just keep an eye on it. And now we can make the dough has pancake dough has got a little bit thicker, as you can see. We're just waiting now for the pan to heat up. I've got it on 12 on very high. Now dhirdis is very nice if you can get them nice and round, but that's not the most important thing. That you can get them even, that they cook evenly. That's important. And we'll just put a little bit of oil. And spread it with a and put a little bit of coriander in the dough. I know coriander is not everybody's thing, so if you want, you can put any other spices. You can put parsley or dill or oregano or whatever. You know, you can make this also with Italian spices. A friend of mine used to make it for her daughter with thyme, and she really liked that. Okay. So let's make the first one. It's quite a nice runny dough. Just spread it out. We'll make small dhirdis. I like mine quite thin. People make them thicker, but I like them to be quite thin because then everything cooks. So you'll see now it'll start to get little holes in the dough. That means it's cooking below. We just let it cook until everything's dry. It has to be, once it's dry, it means that down below it's cooked. But we won't lift it yet, otherwise we have the same catastrophe as usually the first pancake is always the trial one, which you can see here, there are little holes in it. And it's drying up nicely. So what we do is we take a little oil and just go round like this. And just let it cook a little bit on this side, and then we'll flip it again. And that's dhirdis. And now you can see also, we could switch over to the ghee, how it's getting less and less kind of flaky on the top, like lumpy. It's more is falling to the bottom. It's just a lovely golden colour. Smells very nice too. So dhirdis is a really nice alternative when you just want like a pancake or something quick to eat. It's a very nice thing, and it's also, you know, gluten-free, which is also a big plus at the minute for a lot of people who have a problem with gluten. And you see it's a little brown, but the other side doesn't get as golden as the first side. The second one will be probably the ideal picture perfect dhirdis. And if the dough starts to get too thick, it's still okay, but if it starts to get too thick for you, you can just put a little bit of water into it. So now you can see the ideal picture of what I wanted to show you before. You see the holes are coming up in the dhirdis, and it's going nicely. It's still on quite a high heat. You have to judge your own cooker. With this electric one, we'd have to play around with it. Gas is the ideal, but not very many people have gas cookers these days. With dhirdis, then you can eat it with a pickle, or you can eat it with tomato ketchup, or with yogurt. Today we're going to eat it with some peanut chutney that I've made. It's peanut chutney with sesame and coconut. I show that in one of my next videos, and we'll mix that with a little yogurt, and that'll be our lunch. Now, that's the perfect color. That's what I was looking for. And this is the next stage of our ghee. I want to show you. You see that a lot of the foam has sort of gone to the bottom. It's just that on the top, and it's still bubbling. And sort of my motto for ghee is it just bubbles and bubbles, and it makes all this nice bubbling noise. And once it starts to get quiet, it's like with the kids. Once it gets quiet, you have to check it. So our dhirdis has these nice holes on the top, and it's drying up, you see. And you can use ghee to go around the side, or this is peanut oil that I'm using. You don't need a lot. It's just so that it gets that. Actually, it helps it to get that nice brown color. You can see the ghee is getting quieter and quieter and quieter. And we can just take a little look. You don't stir it. You don't need to stir it, but we can just look and see at the bottom of the pot. Can you see that? At the bottom of the pot, you see most of the milk solids have dropped to the bottom. And it's turning a really nice golden color, and it smells wonderful. And our dhirdis is looking fantastic. So our ghee looks just lovely. It looks wonderful, and we're going to do the last test just to make sure that all of the water is out of it. It's going to start bubbling, yeah. So that's the test. And once, if you sprinkle water into it and it bubbles up, that means that the water is out of it. So now we're going to just let it sit for a minute to let everything calm down, and then filter it into our little pot here. And our dhirdis are going at a rate of knots. We can have lunch soon. And what we're going to have today is, this is a chutney that I've made with peanuts. They're roasted ground peanuts, roasted ground sesame, and roasted ground coconut flakes. And I've mixed them with chili and salt, a little salt, and some roasted ground cumin. And we're just going to have this today with our dhirdis. I'll just mix some of it up with a little yogurt. It's quite spicy, and it's nice. You can use it on bread, or you can use it on rice. It's what you call a dry chutney. You know, usually people know mango chutney and this, or mint chutney, these fresh chutneys, or the fermented chutneys, but this is just a dry chutney, and it keeps for quite a long time. So we'll just use this as our condiment today. And there we have it. So our ghee, you can see there's just a little bit more of these milk solids on the top, but we're going to filter them out. It's a really nice goldeny color. See this beautiful gold. This is what they call liquid gold in India. And this is what's left in the bottom. What we do now is we'll put some hot water in it and let it boil. and that will help to clean the pot. And the water that's left after boiling, you can filter it and put it in soup or in rice, or it just gives everything a nice flavour. I'm not going to touch the pot because it's very hot. And there you have ghee. So now we have our lunch, that is Mung Dal soup. It's peanut chutney with yogurt and dhirda. Enjoy!